Shalom, shalom, Mishpachah.
Yes, blessed love, glory of the day. Yes, family.
All right.
Shabbat shalom.
Yeah, man, Shabbat shalom. So, of course, we moving, coming at the end of another Shavua. Moving into our Shabbat. And of course, we got to do the old, if you can hear me, for the number one. Yeah, of course, we got to, say of course 3 more times.
Yeah.
But yeah, we got to do our sound check and acknowledge the 20-second delay. So we're going to wait until we get that number one.
All right. Cool. Yes, family.
So how was your strong?
Man, the strongs are always beautiful, man. Strongs are always beautiful, man. Give thanks for the process. I'm appreciating more and more preparing for the Sabbath,
Mm-hmm.
And really understanding the measurements of time leading into that. And Chief had given a lecture in the annual spiritual training, speaking about moving away from our original form, in essence. When the great potter designed us to be a certain thing, and we decided we're going to grow something. So, adding all these things into our space that moves us away from our revered state, our divine state, rather. Keeping that in my heavens continually as I prepare for Sabbath, as I prepare for my emotions, my movement, being very calculated, like ordering from the 14 keys, Give thanks, sovereign eats. Give thanks, sovereign eats.
Yes, peace, Sister Mark Shop.
Yeah. Red pill, blue pill.
Yeah, man. But yeah, what you were saying was key when you're dealing with your movements and what you hold sacred. Because usually it's the other way around, where you're focused so much on your secular life and you try to squeeze the sacredness in there, wherever it can fit in. Sometimes we can forget where our priorities should be in our movements.
Naturally. Yeah, but we're moving good. Sister Sovereign needs. Yeah, man. We're moving good, man. Strong.
How you moving?
Yeah, how you moving? Yeah, man. Yeah, but just understanding our steps and our passages, being calculated. The Emma Precious and Sister Deidre really touched on it about maybe a month ago now, in their reading, when they were speaking to the whats and the whys and the whos, and if we start to apply that and we look at one of the things that we're going to be discussing this evening, the preparation and assessments of self, you start to become much more efficient, man.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, man.
Definitely.
With a quickness, yes. It did come like wow, right?
Yeah. Yeah, this Shavua was pretty quick. Of course the nights are shorter and the days, days are getting to the point where, we're trying to cram a lot more into them. We look out and we see the sun still up. We say, let me do this, let me do that. Man, peace and respect.
Yes. Blessed love, glory of the day. In the words of Elazar, Chief.
Yeah,
yeah,
just moving with that level of self-assessment, like you were speaking of earlier, is very important. Hot Munira.
Yes,
Peace
Munira.
Peace to you.
Yes.
But getting into it, we can start off with the reading. We got 2 or 3 gathered in the midst.
Yes. Where there's the presence, there's the indwelling, right? Yeah, man.
Yeah, so of course we are Abba Cruz and Ache Antonio, and we've already acknowledged the 20-second delay. We just want to open the space with reverence to the Most High Yah, and of course giving big ups to Chief Yuya, Chief Jagna of Our New Life Global Ministries, who has put together this very, very important and needed work for our people in this time. And I'm going to read now a condensed version of the preface, which is that this book is not to be read only once. Read the words of this book of knowledge and wisdom out loud. Discuss the convictions of this work with your Anu brothers and sisters. Share this information with your people. This publication should be read daily. Every line in this book can be taken out of context and studied on the strength of its own potential. The truth is to be deliberated. Of course, that is from Chief Yuya Hassan Anu. Peace, my precious. My name is Precious.
Yeah. Blessings. Yeah, man. So, family, what we want to do is start you with the question. Start you with our question of the evening again. Reminding that there's a 20-second delay for those who possibly have not submitted in the chat as yet or made themselves present in the chat as yet. Just reminding you that there's a 20-second delay. So today's focus question, and we will unravel it more as we get into our dialogue this evening, is when it comes to courting, it's discovery, right? So the question is, have we discovered ourselves as much as we are looking to discover our potential mate? Are we as critical of ourselves as we will be as critical of our potential mate? So just want you to understand that when we look at the process of coming together, it is reciprocated as far as the energy and the movement of it. So if we're looking to pull something, the truth, out of our mate, it's natural to assess that they will be looking to do the same with us, no matter what our gender assignment is. So that there is something that's really going to be hit home this evening as we read through the text. So, Aki Antonio.
Sure. So the key word in courtship is court. During this process, we are cross-examining and producing discovery or evidence as to what our positions are. This is the time to ask all of the questions of your potential partner that you can muster. If you allow feelings of elation to cloud your judgment and rely on assumptions, you will waste the court's time. Assure your potential partner that you are coming into the court ready to get to the core of the truth and not just explore feelings of affection. There'll be time for that.
Powerful.
And of course, just to remind you all of the order: first we court, then we betroth, and then we mate. Then the mating is consummated.
Yeah, man. So you have any initial takeaways? I wouldn't even say at first glance, but at first expression when we read it aloud. What's the first thing that you can safely say grounded you in that paragraph that was coming at you strongly?
I like the fact that you used the word grounded, because what stuck out to me, even as I was just reading, was coming into this courtship process ready and willing to get to the core of the truth, which is something that I found very key, especially in one of the sections of solutions for dysfunctional family relationships that we wanted to reference, when Niall is sort of like making that proposition to Father Freeman, the community elder. He's saying, I want to court the sister. I'm interested in entering into a courtship with the intention of marrying her and so on and so forth. So Barbara Freeman was saying, okay, what are your plans? And he lays out, he goes to the logical side of his plans. You know what I mean? But when it came to like the more emotional intelligence, he had to admit after some probing from E.R. Freeman that he wasn't as emotionally intelligent as he thought he was, or he may not have the emotional intelligence necessary to carry him through this process. And what was very profound was that it was stated that he took a leap of faith and he said, or he asked, will you help me? You know what I mean? So that in itself was like a submission to the truth. You know what I mean? Because he could have said, "Oh well, yeah, I'm emotionally secure, and I know how to get in touch with my emotions and all that. Yeah, all that's good, but this is my plan. Can we just go stick to the plan?" He was like, "No, I'm lacking in that area. Can you help me?" I thought that was very powerful.
True. And, just stating, but my grounding was, within that first sentence, the second sentence, rather. During this process, we are cross-examining and producing discovery evidence as to what our positions are. So this definitely speaks to, in this case, we can look at our vital, I guess, edicts, just as well as, the requirements of what a man and a woman should be, or what we should bring. We can have our supply of food and so on, but did we really go through ministry of self? So then I started that journey, ministry to self, rather. We think about what our position should be. We look at what our so-called talents are, and what we think we're bringing to the table, and also where we're lacking. But it was when we start to think about the lack and our efficiency is when we actually start to look at, the necessity of what Chief mentions in the annual spiritual training, which is the ministry to self. So when you look at phases 1, 2, and 3, it's ministry to self, ministry to the Creator, and ministry to the community. Mm-hmm. So how can you look at discovering someone fully if you really haven't discovered yourself? Mm-hmm. When you look at a man who's a archaeologist, he knows within himself that these are his tools. This is his efficiency with the tools, because he's moving across new terrain with the mindset of discovering what it is that he should be looking for. Chief, put a comment in.
Mm-hmm. I do not mingle warm, amorous affection with my internal development, but with my consorts there is a mix of affection and judgment. So I am more aware and critical of myself than with them.
Powerful.
Yeah, powerful. For sure. Because as the man, you're the head. Mm-hmm. So it starts with you. So if you're not aware of yourself, a lot of things can get past you. Mm. And if you are aware of yourself and then you're more aware of your mates, who you're mated with. Mm-hmm. Of course, the courtship process helps with that.
True. This ties in strongly to what the brothers were talking about on the Anu Beginnings last week in their live broadcast, where Akif Rahman actually started to get strongly onto the understanding of, as a king, what it is that you're looking for, what it is that you need and require in your helpmate. Mm-hmm. And then obviously on the next end, from the calculation of a woman's perspective, what it is that she knows that she can directly complement initially, and from there understanding from both ends the tools that we would need. So I would like to remind you all of some of the questions that you would have come across in your application to Anu, which is, one, are you holistically healthy? Have you really done that self-assessment? Are you a man, and at what point did you become a man? This here and the Anu Way Foundations, it brings it home to us more that we are to be validated by our peers. Right. We are to be validated by our peers. So now this here is where the necessity of the self-assessment comes in. Are we prepared to be humble to, our brothers giving us the constructive criticism, mm-hmm. passing the judgment? Yeah, brother, you're not ready. You need to consider this, you need to consider that, you need to focus on this and focus on that. Mm-hmm. And this actually ties in, this point strongly, one of our discussions on this matter is at an earlier paragraph under the section of family, which would be the 4th paragraph down.
Right, this is the one that you and a hot teacher did.
Correct.
So you wanted to go through that one?
Yeah, I'm just gonna give a quick tag and read it to just ask you all to indulge. Say, if we do not take the family decision seriously, we will inherit the inability to actually harvest anything in this world or see it from a level place. We become one flesh with our chosen mate. Can you walk properly if one of your feet is 6 inches longer than the other? What if your right eye is constantly looking down or your left is looking up? How would you be able to set your hands to the work that your mind imagines if one half of your brain was stuck in a ceaseless dream state and the other half was fully awakened? When we choose a mate without equanimity, we misalign our posture balance. If we cannot stand straight, how can we see straight? If we spend that time constantly compensating for the mix-match coupling that we have partaken in, we will have no energy left to fulfill our purpose. Without knowledge of your Creator, you will never know your purpose. Without knowledge of how to suitably choose a mate, you will never be able to fulfill that purpose. So, of course, you cannot do any of those things until you realize what size shoes you wear. You know,
Exactly.
so your left foot, you have to know that you're a 10 and a half. And Chief touched on this when he started speaking to, wearing, the smaller clothing on one of the segments.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I know there were a couple of points that you also raised on that paragraph.
For sure. One of the things that stuck out to me as you were reading it just now was the breakdown of groups. You know, yesterday when Akhi Lo and Akhi Zak and Chief and Kashia, and we were all building on the fact that Kunta was still very much tethered to his Mandinka culture and heritage, whereas the mates that he had been in interaction with, or mates that he had really had a fondness for and wanted to connect to, they were more Americanized. One was born there, and one had gone through the horrific process of, like he was like, "What have they done to you?" And Fanta was like, "Everything." You know what I mean? So even from that standpoint, you have Fanta trying to compensate for the mismatch and very molesting process of having those slave makers, have their way with her. So she has to compensate with that. She has to compensate for that by being, quote unquote strong, and manning up. You know what I mean? And like, oh, I don't deal with that African stuff no more. Like forgetting everything or detaching from everything that she thinks would or that may cause her pain. She has to deal with the fact that her family was slain before she came over. You know what I mean? And Konta, on the other hand, he basically mates with two females who were unequally yoked with him. So now one leg is shorter than the other. One eye is looking to Africa, the next eye is looking to America. One eye is looking north to the northern states. One eye is trying to stay down south and keep their head down. So it was very, very, it was very stifling. And as a result of that, Kunta may not have fulfilled his purpose.
True. The last line as far as the fulfillment of purpose. Again, this is where that self-assessment model comes in. So if we're assuring that our potential partner that in the courtship we're coming to get to the core of the truth, and obviously we are needing to expect that even if they didn't initially, they now have to also do the same. They're coming to get to the core of the truth of us. So now our journey to align with our purpose and manifesting the will of Yah here on earth is what the focal point is. As we're unraveling and, as they say in certain circles, we're chiseling away those superficial tendencies of the human experience to become more divine in nature. Our mates should see that. They should see that in our work. They should see that in our development. Demonstration of a proclamation. As Chief pointed out on a segment when he spoke about the Anu man and Anu woman, is actually, if I'm not mistaken, the podcast where he spoke about the woman focusing on what is in the man's heart and the man focusing on what is in the woman's, what is on her mind, and looking at that balance of opposites, but yet in the same breath, preparing to be naked to each other, preparing to actually go through that discovery, asking the questions that, should be asked. What is your 15 to 20-year plan? Are you holistically healthy? How do you view the areas of culture that should be focused on? How do you view homeschooling? How do you view living in rural locations? Things of the sort. And before you can ask those questions of somebody, you need to ask how you align with those things. What is your posture towards these topics, if you may, and these categories of life? And once you start to ask those questions, and if you know that you're not satisfied with the answer that the will of Yah is actually should be dictating to you, if are you hardened to what is actually given, and if you're hardened to it, then you're not ready, not to court this culture. You might be able to court in the culture of dysfunction, but then also too, you have to realize that you can fall further back if you don't put the work. So as it's being revealed to you, you have to actually walk the door. You knocked. You said I want to be balanced. I want to connect back to my heavenly self. So when I am now looking to gain from you the glory of being my Anu wombsman, am I giving you the glory of being made into Anu man? Am I truly Anu man? And of course, in Anu, we only support the marriage of two adults. You only recognize as adult in Anu when you cover the vitals or the requirements of Anu men and Anu women. So give you an opportunity. I know there was something about those last sentences that you also had, I wouldn't say have a focus point on, but you had a lot to share about those also.
Yeah, man. Something that you had said earlier about that podcast that Chief had done on courting versus dating, and he had also said something along the lines of, the same portion that you had mentioned about the woman, the man knowing the woman's mind, and the woman knowing the man's heart. And what stood out to me was that Chief had elaborated on it by saying that the woman normally keeps her mind like a mystery or a secret from everyone, even a mother. And then the man normally keeps his heart under lock and key. So one of the things that stuck out to me was if you're moving with that level of a barrier between you and the world, or maybe even between you and yourself, then how do you even begin to ask the right questions? You know what I mean? So that even brought me back to Nile, where he was like, "Can you help me?" Like he didn't know which questions to ask at that point.
Yep.
You know what I mean? So there's sort of a humility and an admission of ignorance of self before you could actually begin that journey of knowledge of self.
Naturally. Something key that you also mentioned is when you speak about the positioning, the understanding, in the culture of the courtship, there's chaperoning. So there are areas of your positions that you may not see because you're not able to fully see your posture. So your elder is able to actually speak to you with reference to where you need to adjust yourself entering the process. So that also we need to prepare. That point rather is something that we also need to take high considerations to. When we're discussing elevations that are life impacting, we should be able to have the camaraderie and fellowship with those who are further ahead, just as well as those who are on the level with us, to ask of them, like, what do you think about this? I should be able to come to wise counsel, and if I cannot come to wise counsel, then I'm in the wrong community. Again, I got to cite my brothers last week. You go to your leader. If you ask your leader, look, okay, we good. I love all the sanctified information. Teach me how to grow my own food. Teach me how to protect my family. These are what your positions should be as you're moving, and you need to be aware that, look, this is the position I should be in. And you speak to your counsel, and your counsel says, "No, you ain't ready, brother."
So would it be safe to say that going through that process of attaining your manhood or attaining your womanhood, these questions would be revealed to you? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Seeing that you have certain aspects of you that you should have already cultivated before you even think about mating or merging with another person, and realizing that understanding your own shape means that you understand what fits. As Chief would say. So knowing your shape does knowing your shape help you to ask these questions?
Of course, because the transformation that you're actually going to go through when you're moving on those quadrants now, the transformation of water takes the shape of whatever is actually, holding or being held by, rather. So if the form that your mission now, if your brand is formed a certain way, the transformation will be based on that form. And you have to understand that though you're looking to be fashioned a certain way, there's certain areas of your purpose that are signature to that process. So if you're carrying this canister of water up a mountain trail, that you definitely want to be specific to the dimensions that it has when you have to possibly use all four. You may have to probably attach it to a backpack of sorts. I'm just using a very random analogy here to bring the water formation in place, right? But again, understanding your requirements for your family, your requirements for how you see your posturing to be. And now that there is what it takes, your mission. And from there, you are asking yourself those questions. What do I need to move up this hill? What do I need to move down this terrain? This terrain of becoming an Anu man, this terrain of becoming an Anu woman. How am I positioning myself to actually move down this terrain? I know the Jagna's already said, this is where we're heading. This is where we need to go. This is where we've been instructed to go. And it's been said to us a long time ago. I'm reaffirming it for you. This is where your positions should be. Okay? That being said, do I have the right footwear? Do I have the right mindset? Have I prepared myself and conditioned myself for a journey such as this? And now, when I look at my brother and my sister who's on the journey, when I look at you as my counsel, my fellowship, when I look at her as my potential mate, I can validate myself in asking those questions now because I am able to analyze the answers different because I've gone through that self-assessment. And I remember you mentioned the segment that Chief did on self-assessment.
Yes.
And it again brings it all home.
Right, right. And even the point of if you can't connect with the Creator, then you won't know your purpose. You know what I mean? So even before you get to the mating segment, one of the first portions in family under this chapter that we've been reviewing is that you have to realize that the creation of a family is mathematically the second most important undertaking that you could endeavor to accomplish. The first is deciding which God you serve. You know what I mean? Meaning that once you decide, this is the God I'm going to serve, then you have a vision revealed to you. If you're moving with that vision, then of course you're also going to get a vision of your mate. But if you don't understand the science of mating, then you'll never fulfill the vision that you've been given.
True.
Yeah. And I just want to, repose this question to the chat.
A few more people in the chat now.
Yeah, I see a lot of activity going on in there.
Send some acknowledgements. Who we got?
So of course we got Ima Sequoia. Peace to the House of Bell. Peace, Brother Timaeus Holt. Peace, Kashia. Peace, Sister Shamanique. Peace, Ahi Christopher. Peace, Brother Logan. Yeah, peace to you all.
Yeah, Maxine.
Yeah, that's Shamanique there.
Okay.
Yeah, just so you came as Ipako last night.
Yeah.
Extended
family. Yeah. Pardons.
Yeah, but yeah, I would like to repose that question to you all. How have you examined yourself as much as you plan to examine your potential mate?
Yep. Have you discovered yourself as much as you are intending to discover your mate, or your potential mate, rather? Very vital. And this, when you were speaking just now, thinking about Chief's comment earlier, and it ties into the middle of this paragraph. Say, if you allow feelings of elation to cloud your judgment and rely on assumptions, you will waste the court's time. So again, starting at the self, I'm already given a path, I'm already given a map. But my feelings hamper me because I'm thinking about what my position is here presently. I'm thinking about, maybe I've never taken a track of 15 miles nonstop before. I'm thinking about all the things I possibly don't have that would, based on my definitions, be needed, as opposed to me sitting down and say, hey, with what I have right now, I speak to my counsel with what I have right now. Can I make it through? And then, someone says, no, well, you good, brother. Just endurance now.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Or someone says, but you may want to consider arming yourself with this.
Mm-hmm.
Let's start here. You may want to consider arming yourself with this. And along the way, you're going to also need this. So you may want to consider, have you ever contemplated this? When you look at yourself, again, a new spiritual training, healing the emotional body, your energy flows, how you view things, are you petty? Are you patient? You know what I mean?
Yeah. A petty one is a big one.
Yeah. If you was a man and you petty, boy, you got a little problem when it comes time to be made it, because now your objectivity is down. You can't see beyond things because you're being prepared to be objective. Again, this is in the culture of Anu. If you grew up in Ozzy Osbourne's house, you may be having a different conversation with you, or maybe Bill Cosby's house. Again, this is the ideal. You might come just like, the brother when he's speaking with Barbara Freeman. Yeah, I know how to fix my car. I'm doing this. I've invested in this area of my life where business is concerned to make sure that when, my offspring start coming, I'm in this position. Yeah, you think about all these things. I'm thinking about education. I'm making these plans. But okay, did you focus on the core? What are you doing this for? What is your motivation to your community? What is your mission? Yeah. Have you considered a family mission?
Or even, what are you?
What's your position?
Mm-hmm.
What size shoe you wear?
What size shoe you wear? Yeah. Have you taken? Do you know your shape? Do you know your form? Do you know how you've been malformed? And how you need to be reformed.
Yep.
Those are important questions as well, because as you see when you move throughout later stages of the book, that he has a lot of issues with expressing himself, but he also has a lot of issues with overachievement. So even though it looked good on the surface what he was doing, he also had to take a step back and realize that there's a balancing aspect that's involved. You know what I mean? And you can see, I really, really recommend it. It's a really good and informative read, that Solutions book, because it also shows you some very good models of different archetypes that you might find in our neighborhoods and in our communities. There's a distinction. But it's I would just get the book. I'm not the best with all plugs or anything like that. Like, genuinely, it helps me to understand mating and myself more. I don't have like a commercial put together. I say just get the book. Hashtag get the book.
Yeah. The element of self-ministry can be self-assessment, and the ministry to self rather cannot be hit home enough, because we could walk into a situation completely unprepared. When you look at the generational curses reading prior to the courting, it speaks to how we have to study the craft as we are going through training for matrimony. And the first thing when anything is to be trained, it has to be determined what it is first. So you can understand temperaments, you can understand patterns, you can understand, I guess, what would be potentials, as far as, okay, what are the limitations of this thing? How old am I to undertake this or that? When I'm speaking, I'm obviously talking about a couple of different things. Like Chief said, if you hook up with a brother who's this, and then he's talking about, within my 15-year plan, I plan on, becoming a musician, and he's already 42. That you might want to think about how objective he really is with his goals. How realistic is he?
That was one of the things that really hit me hard when I came into Anu, because you have a community around you, and the example that Chief had given and Abarani brought up recently about, you can't really see the small of your back. You know what I mean? Like there's certain parts of your body that you
You can look.
Yeah, you can look.
You can look, but you ain't gonna get there.
Yeah, you're gonna need someone else to tell you that.
Nice. Can't see it, bro. What's that?
You might be wearing a hat and there's a tarantula on your hat. Like someone else is gonna have to say, "Yo, take the hat off," or they might have to remove the hat from your head and deal with that later. But having the scrutiny of everyone around me, and even going through the process of being willing to, be naked, in a group setting, and have everybody look at your flaws and your maladies and your deformities, and the way that's affected what you think are plans. You know what I mean? That has definitely been an eye opener for me, because I had some plans that weren't really airtight. I just wanted to have something that sounded good when someone asked me what I was doing. You know what I mean? So that was something that I had to really look at and step back and be like, okay, is this plan sound? You know what I mean? It would sound airtight to someone who isn't doing anything. But when you present this to someone like, I think Chief would use the example, you go to Elon Musk and you say, okay, this is my plan. They say, all right, you need to work on that. You can't sit there and wait for an explanation. Yeah, Chief said, by the lack of response to your question, I suppose many have been stumped on the idea of seeing the small of their back. Yeah.
The thing that you started to touch on, as you were speaking just now, Chief said that it even brings us home more. But he says, this is the time to ask all of the questions that you of your potential partner that you can muster, right? So have you asked yourself those questions?
Yeah.
Am I prepared to stop looking at the small of my back? I realized that after how many years of realizing I had the small of my back and attempting to observe it, that I'm absolutely unable to.
Yeah, you're just gonna look like a dog chasing its tail.
Yeah.
And you're gonna get similar results.
And there's only one motion that moves, it's all circular, non-connecting, and back on the other motion, there's no way to accomplish the end result that you're shooting for.
Yeah.
So you need your counsel.
Yeah, you need to communicate, and you need to commune. You know what I mean? It's not just enough to say, I know this person, I know that person. You really gotta build with each other and realize, okay, these are my strengths, and these are what I can use to benefit the community. But these might be some of the liabilities that I have. And you gotta remember, you put anything into your woman, she's gonna magnify it and multiply it. That includes your liabilities and your faults. That includes your poisonous or off ideas. So you really have to make sure that you're solid before you undertake this courting process.
Naturally.
And the beauty of the courtship process is it reveals those things before it's too late, and you already have 2 or 3 time bombs running around the community.
True.
Man, there's a reason why. The way I see it, there's a reason why generational curses precedes courtship.
Yep.
And being able to examine and cleanse your bloodline precedes this process of saying, okay, I want to mate.
Naturally.
For what?
Naturally. What are you doing it for? What are you doing it for? In our new studies, we are introduced to the concept of supreme mathematics. And today's mathematics is wisdom, which is the manifestation of knowledge. And knowledge is to look, listen, and observe. It's facts. So are we moving to the truth of things? Are we moving with what we believe something is, or what we know something to truly be? What has been demonstrated to us by this thing? Is water refreshing to us just as well as it's nourishing? Or from the other side now, is Kool-Aid just sweet and nourishing? Is it refreshing? So do we have parts? Do we have the wholes? Do we really understand what it is that we're doing and why we're doing it,
For sure. Achot Kashia says, I try to take sober assessments on a daily basis and align with the requirements of an Anu woman. I also depend on my covering to shine light in dark areas of myself that I may be unaware of, which is key. That's what your covering is supposed to be there for. Not only to protect you, but to shed light on you and help you to see your shape and know where you fit into this puzzle that you're eventually going to go into. Whether that's someone who's covering an unmated woman, or the mate himself. Helping you to understand how you fit into the matrix that you're currently in.
That's a very powerful point that Chief just raised right there.
Yeah, Chief says when a woman asks her place in a man's plan and he babbles because he truly has no real plan, credibility is shattered and the demon of toxic femininity begins to softly whisper to her.
Yep.
Yeah.
Reality.
Yeah.
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 And the truth of the matter is, the man didn't understand what his position was, because he would have gone complete. He would have gone complete, and regretfully, a lot of us do not go completed. Now, there's only so much completion that happens, again, without continually self-assessing, without continually taking the journey. But reality is, there has to be a level of completeness, a plateau that one has arrived at, to understand what is the terrain of the land that one is now about to embark on. So that plateau in this case now is understanding what your gender assignment is, what your role play will be in the relationship.
Yeah, the role you play.
The role you play in the relationship.
Good. Kashia also says, I also go over the mating questions in the solutions box, which is very, very helpful to get a good idea of where your positioning is.
That's you gotta get lifted up on that.
Yeah, so she says, I also go over the mating questions in the solutions box to see how my responses have evolved or if I need some work in those areas. Yeah, that's very good. You know what I mean? Chief says many don't inherit planning, organizational formations from parents. We have dreams like adolescents, but no vision. So there's no vision statement, and hence no operational strategies or goals. Yeah, it's funny. I was watching this documentary on education, and someone had used the term they had said that Western culture or Western education tends to seek to create perpetual adolescence, or at least that's what it produces. Western culture normally has people who go through a certain track in order to not only equip them for employment, but it also strips them of their vision pretty ruthlessly. So you're not going to really want to question, why am I here on this job site when I could be fulfilling my purpose? Your purpose to you might just be surviving. Like Chief had brought up during last night's live, that the concept of, we're talking about enslaved Africans on the plantation, the idea or the concept of a system or an institution of slavery might not occur to them because they're on a 2 by 10 mile grid and they're working on it.
Yep.
Think about and he had also mentioned, think about people who's been on the corner on the block their whole life, never left the block. Your field of vision is so skewed that by the time you realize that something is off, you don't know which way is up. That's why reformation is so important, because first you understand where you're at, and then you start to move from there. It's not about you can't go back and be like, okay, I'll just do a do-over. You have to start where you're at.
Absolutely.
So that self-assessment is key. And Brother Logan Scott said, I've examined myself, but would need the examination of older, more advanced men to point out my blind spots and unidentified areas of weaknesses. Yeah. Would you want to?
Yeah, not every counsel is wise counsel, Logan. So you wanna also consider that. So when you think about the older and more advanced aspect, that's one factor. But then also too, you want to ask yourself, are you looking to ask the question just because you're able to, and this is very general. I ask myself this, all right? So I don't want you to think I'm honing in on you and saying that you said so, you're insinuating something incorrect. But when we go through the process of questioning, have we qualified the question? Because sometimes the answer is very much so in front of us, So if we're considering somebody advanced, why are they considered advanced? What is it that we possibly like? We want to go through a level of assessment even before we start asking questions outside. We want to come to that level of realization. Now, that's, of course, understanding that we've arrived at a certain point in our journey where we've come to that level of maturity. There are some brothers who are possibly 18 or 19 who may not surmise that thought in their mind. They probably have to buck the toe a little bit, realizing that they really don't play soccer as good as they think they do. They may have to go through a process. We also would have gone through that. Now, the reason why we're doing what we're doing is because we want to be able to school our sons now that are born under this canopy into the mindset of this is how we should operate, and this is how we should dialogue with our reality and the realities that we're looking to bring into our spaces. So at 16, you won't do the same things I did because you have a plan and a projection that you're falling into that I'm giving you as a 16-year-old under my covering as your father. When you turn 18 to 21, at whatever point you're now disengaged based on the religion of my homestead, at that point now, you start to say, well, these are the questions I should be asking of myself because this is the curriculum that I have. This is my mission. And from there now, I understand what advanced is to me because I know within my culture what it should look like at this level of my path. And I know in my culture, this is the level of training that I should be adopting or I should be fostering into my homestead. And then from there, now, when you get to the age that you'll be looking for a partnership, you speak to your counsel, you qualify yourself, you qualify your questions, and you may be like myself and many others coming into the space of Anu where we have to seek counsel from a very raw fashion because a lot of things we haven't figured out. So you have to also take that into consideration when you're actually getting answers. Are you prepared for the answers that you're going to get? Are you prepared for the answers to say, yo, bro, you way down here. You think you're up here, but you way down here. You're down there with a swamp and the snakes is. I don't know if you realize how close you are to contamination.
Yeah, what you were saying, what you just alluded to, is usually a result of skipping steps. And sometimes it's steps that you didn't even realize were there to be skipped because this culture does a very insidious job of hiding, obscuring your path and where you should be going. And Chief says, true, an uninformed unisexual citizen is best designed for labor camps. When you reuse parts or methods, organizations save resources. One scheme of national programming is an economic agenda.
Yeah, what's the economic plan?
Mm-hmm.
Economics is the flow of resources into a homestead,
including human resources.
Yep.
Yeah. So you want to catch that one from Brother Chris?
Yeah, man. Brother Magneto, peace, Chief. As I've grown, and I know, so you don't mind reading it because the angle.
Oh, I got you.
Sorry.
I got you. Peace, Chief. As I've grown and I knew, I've learned to do both. I've learned to do both better. Something that's come up is realizing how the curse of poverty corrodes the integrity of courting. Due to an anxiety about the lack of abundance, it could be easier to ask questions that may not eliminate the potentiality of a mate. Mm-hmm. I am learning to ask questions of myself and a potential mate without the fear that the creator would not provide what is necessary to sustain itself.
Absolutely.
All right. So, Brother Chris, what kinds of questions have yielded the best results? It's like you said, sometimes when you have that poverty mindset and you're working to get out of it, one of the biggest issues is your ego. You fear stepping out from some of the symptoms of those curses, like working a job for someone, or not educating yourself about finance, because I know this was an issue for me, not really focusing on finances, because you have such an idea of lack, or concept of lack, operating at the base of everything that you do, that you're like, I'm not gonna have anything anyway, so why should I learn how to manage if everything goes from hand to mouth? Like, that was a big thing for me coming into ANU and learning more about finances and economics, and even learn how to manage yourself and your internal components like a business, whether that's your self, your personal self, or your family. You know what I mean? So I just wanted to ask the question: what kinds of questions have yielded the best results when you made that internal inquiry? Oh, and Brother Logan Scott says, "Give thanks for that response, brother."
No, man, give thanks for the follow through, and follow up with reference to the question, and posting in the chat. Reality is, um, once we would have qualified ourselves to ask counsel of brothers who are further along the path, is there's no great man who hasn't sought counsel, and that is one of the requirements of the king. The king takes wise counsel. So who's the counsel? Who is the counsel?
At what age did you become a woman, and how did you know?
Oh, that's the answer of the woman. Yes.
And of course, the whole theme of this is, have you examined yourself the same way you hope to examine your potential partner? So
naturally,
at what age did you become a man, and how did you know? All right, man. So these are very essential questions,
Yeah.
And Chief Uyas says, asking questions is important, Brother Chris, as is the unspoken. Record the amount of questions you need to ask for clarity. If you're pulling teeth, she will never submit to you, which is true. So that is a good question to start with. What age did you become a woman, and how did you know? That'll give you a very good bird's eye view of the landscape of her mentality, as it pertains to the world and how she fits in it.
Naturally. And then, of course, once that question is asked itself, when you look at it in the reverse, just as well as you're looking at it in the distribution of it, at what age did I become a man, and how did I know? Then, of course, the question is, what is a man? What is a woman? What is required for me to be considered a man? What is required of her to be considered a woman? And only culture can dictate what these answers really are to individuals. One has to make a determination as far as what they're embracing. So, of course, you pick the God that you're going to serve, and based on that determines what you as a man is measured to. And from there, that determines what her as a woman should be measured to, and then that will determine what you as a family should look like. So these are steps. So it's like the systems of the body. When you start going through these levels of self-assessment, you realize how your systems are functioning from how they're not functioning, how they overlap. So look at the internal component. You have a skeletal system, a reproductive system, endocrine system, circulatory, nervous system, on and on, right? And they all intertwine and interoperate at some point. So when you spoke about, like, for instance, the finance topic, a lot of people are navigating. I'm just picking this one area to hone in. A lot of people are moving as financial infants, but they have lifestyles as financial preteens. So you have to look at where it is that I'm actually positioned, or what it is that I'm actually living, and rewind that process. Hit reset. Okay, what steps did I skip? Why am I way over here, but this is way down here? When I'm looking at courting now, have these questions I'm walking through, like the questions that Sister Kashia made reference to from Solutions, did I really ask myself these questions? Like, have I checked them all down? And like Chief mentioned, do I have to babble to get my point across?
Have I asked these questions of an elder who can just stop, listen. This is what you need to do. Because you're talking about this over here. You haven't even done this yet. And because you haven't done that, I know you don't know about it. Do you know about this? Have you ever heard about it? They take you back to wherever your strongest, the the most solid part of your foundation is. And now it's up to you to dig up what you've already laid down, haphazardly, and really pave the road properly, by following the proper procedure. That procedure is basically modeled by the men who are further along than you. Like Brother Zach usually says, men learn in two ways, either from trial and error or from learning from men who are further along the path. You know what I mean? So you getting counsel from your elders is a big part of understanding, and this is elders who are part of your community, not just people who are older than you. You get a much more clear understanding of how you're supposed to be moving. Chief Yuya says it is advantageous to have sisters in your community assist you. Women can prepare a potential mate to know that questions are forthcoming. The same stands in the complement polarity, right? So peace, Nicole, having men that are further ahead than you, and asking them about the required qualities or even about potential mates is advantageous.
Powerful point right now.
Yeah, Chief says community elders will typically let you know when you should be looking for a mate because they will want to protect your integrity and virtue. Yeah, that is a powerful point.
Bro, time to get a wife. Yeah, man. You doing all this, you doing all of that. You need to break some cruises, you know what I mean? Yeah. Break some cruises and crucials and cruisettes and cruisades, you know what I mean? They're Tony Juniors. It's time for you to get a couple of Tony Juniors, man. You know what I mean? You need someone to help you till this farm, you know?
Yeah. That point made me think of, in the Holy Bible in Genesis where, Yahuwah was like, it's not good for man to be alone. And they're like, bro, you need to make like ASAP. You know what I mean? So, yeah, it sounds complex because we weren't raised in a culture that does this, but I imagine it's very, very simple once, you have children that are raised in the culture as opposed to people who were like, I don't know what's the best, molested out of that modality of thinking and into something that's just foreign. You know what I mean? And just the journey of getting back to that is very uncomfortable but very necessary.
Naturally. The laws have been given to us how we should approach this process. Mm-hmm. The laws are there. You go into the holy texts and schools of thought, the laws are there. Mm-hmm. And I'll channel some chief people would ask you the questions, give it all these commentary, grasp at the root back, and they say, get the book. The book, it's in the book. Yeah, book. So what I say is, get the book. It's in the book. Download the book. Do what it says. Read it every day. Deliberate with your brothers. Deliberate. It's a dangerous position as a man to not have a mission. It's a dangerous position as a man to not understand what his qualities are. It's a dangerous position as a man to not understand that he needs to be around other men. And it's even more dangerous position for a man to now think that he's a man, not actually have achieved all of these things. Mm-hmm. So, are you prepared to not build what you cannot protect? You can't protect your family. If you don't understand the components of soul, spirit, mind, and body, you gotta take some steps back. And the components, keyword there,
Mm-hmm. For sure.
Yeah, man.
Of course, we're getting close to that hour mark. So, Chief also said our prime directive is to multiply. If we are true patriarchs, that will be our prime vision for the kingdom we are a part of. It's about going back to the primal roots. Primal is normally, that word primal is normally misconstrued into something that's, savage and, destructive. Something that has to be done away with. Anything primal.
Actually.
So we try. I was just thinking about today how you would have codes of etiquette where people would like have very tiny spoons and tiny portions and everything because you wanna demonstrate a level of self control. You wanna have this fragile glass that you can't really set down too hard, it's gonna break. You know, but there is a time for that primal nature to come out. And again, I'm not talking about being destructive, just talking about focusing on the prime directives that were sort of bred out of you.
Actually,
And it's usually done in most cultures today. Any culture that is not done in is either undocumented or people document it and it's framed in a destructive, retarded sort of way. Like we have to introduce these people to civilization for their own good, that sort of thing.
actually, one of the key things that there's so many key things, right? But when we look at from you mentioning primal, you think about old brain function, that thing that your right foot goes forward and your left hand swings back. Now take that to the formation of family. Before we can speak, languages per se, and we started putting together complexity of verbs and nouns and the things of the sort. We were moving with language communication of tones and clicks, and man and woman coming together is something that's very old. And Chief pointed out something like a couple of years back. He said, our ancestors knew we would be so dumb one day that we had to write it everywhere.
This is how you have sex.
This is how you have to do it.
Yeah.
You have to become a man first before you take a woman. And, yeah. So realizing that there's a level of ascension that we all individually have to go up, and we would do well to not escape that process, and we would do even better for ourselves to realize that we have been skipping steps. Hence the reason why chronic singlehood has actually existed. Hence the reason why we have women who are eligible and regretfully unmated. Hence we have brothers who are depraving the sanctity of the family structure because they are acting as patriarchs and misleading. And unfortunately, they do not nestle the things that Chief mentioned earlier as far as both judgment and affection. There's no measurement scale for them because they haven't actually fully chosen the culture. And from the words of solutions for dysfunctional family relationships and dealing with cross-cultural exchanges, if you do not choose a culture, one will be chosen for you.
Sounds like a good punctuation for what we've been discussing.
Naturally.
So, of course, Chief says Optimus Prime, primitive, primal, dealing with high science. In our primal state, we are strongest because we are closest to first design. Many drifted away from core power to accommodate weak humans. Yeah, that's very powerful.
Yeah.
You could even look at plants, the domesticated version versus the wild version. It's always going to be better in the wild or stronger in the wild.
Powerful. Hey, come here where the primitives are. Come where Anu is. The people from heaven. We came and we created the sons, from our higher divine state, that is. We do not put our arrangement above the arrangement of the Creator. So give thanks for that and get prepared for our expansion on this dialogue next strong. We want everybody to come in, think about the question that has been posted to us, or posed to us rather, with reference to our own self-design. Have we asked ourselves the hard questions, which we're prepared to ask everybody else around us. And courtship, if you think about it, we're discovering all of our new fellowships also. We're discovering ourselves in the connection to life-changing information. We're discovering our postures. We're discovering what footwear we need for our journey. We're discovering there's a continued process of discovery. We're archaeologists. We're on this third dimensional plane. We're moving. Or we could be soulless and ain't moving nowhere.
Yeah, so like Brother Chris says, muggles. Stay away from the muggles.
Yeah, man.
But I would also recommend get the book and read ahead. it's not just about us asking you questions. Ask us some questions too.
And my chief voice, get the book.
Yeah.
The book.
Yeah, it's not hard to find where we are. Let's talk about the other book.
Oh, the other one. Get the other book.
Yeah. Get both.
Sorry, like.
Get both. He's Isaiah. So Chief says, right, Brother Chris, muggles are necessary too, but to conform to their lower I is disrespect to them, as they need us to curate the heavens while they serve as earth custodians. Yeah. With that,
What is respect?
Yeah, respect.
What are we looking at, and what are we actually showing people?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, man.
So for that family, when the sun is officially setting in, if you're on the eastern seaboard, depending on if you're on the northern range or on the southern, we want everybody to move strong, connect, but most importantly, be intentional in the movement. Mm-hmm. Why are you observing Sabbath? What about this is sacred to you? Mm-hmm. And of course, that question eventually goes into why are you actually looking to court? Why are you looking to create family? Mm-hmm. Why are you looking to extend and expand and multiply?
Oh, and of course, applications are closed, for our notes. So shout out to everybody who applied, and look forward to seeing you all.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, man. But until such time, Shabbat Shalom.
Yes, family.
Peace.